Hello and welcome to this week's IG Live. Today I'm very excited to be talking to a friend of mine who is Charlene Mosley, and I've gotten to work with her because she is also part of Makeaway Media. So I have some of her beautiful books displayed behind me. She's often recognized because of her work on Kayla, a modern day princess series, a 5-book series, and also In the Nick of Time and In the Nick of Time 2. And I also just got I was just aware of a new book that she's worked on, which is Buck Up Cowboy Jack. So she is an amazing illustrator, but she's also a fine artist. And we're going to talk a little bit about how those might be similar or different, doing her fine art in her studio versus doing the artwork for children's books. So we're going to talk to her all about that. Again, that's Charlene Mosley. She's an illustrator, an artist, and we are on here. Sorry, I was just looking to see if she was on here yet. We're on here every week talking to the creators of diverse KidLit. So that's children's books, YA, middle grade, all of the movers and shakers in the world of diverse children's literature. And today we are going to be talking to Charlene, which talk to illustrators because especially when you're talking about picture books like the ones you see from Charlene behind me, they really do so much to bring the story to life. So I love getting to learn more about that. Hello.
Hello there. I'm just
Good to see you.
good to see you too.
I was just talking a little bit about your work, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for those who might not know you.
Well, thank you for having me today. I'm super excited. Yeah, my name is Charlene Mosley. I'm an illustrator, fine artist, and multimedia artist, I guess. I do a whole bunch of things because I get bored in just one medium. But yeah, my favorite two things are illustration and fine art. And yeah, I'm based in San Diego. I'm currently at my studio in North Park, in a shared space with 15 other studios.
Wow.
So there's lots of art in this space. It's called Art on 30th. And yeah, so I'm based here, and I work with lots of people remotely as well as in person. Yeah.
And how did you get your start? Did you always know that you wanted to go into art?
Um, I think I think I might not have always known, but I've always made art or crafted things. And so, sorry, I just kind of got here and set up everything super quickly. But yeah, so I've always been drawing. I've always been that one girl in the back of the class, sketching and doodling, drawing on her arms and doing all those things. But as well, like recording my classes with like visuals instead of writing things. And so that kind of carried on through elementary school, middle school, and high school. And then it was kind of like my self-therapy, I think, back in the day, because I was very introverted and not that extroverted. So it was kind of my thing to do all the time. And yeah, that carried through school. And then I went to college and I met all these amazing professors and mentors. And they saw, I guess, that I loved art and that I had a skill for it. And they really pushed me to like go big and go submit and showed me schools that I could go to. I had the most amazing professors and mentors, really.
Oh.
And so I saw all those possibilities. And then I started working as a student worker for the art department in community college. And I got the behind the scenes look of how shows are set up and what
Mm.
goes into all of those, group exhibitions and all these things, how to present your works. And I also got a look into other professors' occupations besides being teachers. And
Mm.
so they had all different kinds of things from illustration to graphic design, tattoo artists, and then that whole world just opened up to me. And I got more and more excited throughout school. But I kind of thought to myself that I would probably be teaching when I get out of school because that was the safest route to get into right away, especially because I already had those connections of where I had worked and maybe references as well. But as soon as I graduated, I moved to Poland for 6 months and I worked on a very big film project called Loving Vincent, where all frames were painted and I really got to like experience being an artist firsthand and being paid for it.
Mm.
And then when I came back, I was like, I'm not going to be teaching. That's just not for me.
Right.
I just want to make the art all the time. And while I love my teachers and professors and really gotten that inspiration from them, I'm that introverted person that doesn't like to speak in front of people and and crowds and all those things. So I get very nervous. It's still a thing that I'm working on actively, but you know, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So, but yeah, so I dove right into making art as a career. And also,
And I'm sorry, I just want to say before we leave them, you got some really lovely comments about how your art is so amazing. You're an amazing illustrator. And that's the book I was mentioning before, that Buck Up Cowboy Jack, how much they appreciate your work on that.
yes, that's
Yeah.
one of the best works I've been working on behind me with two lovely sisters that I'm mentioned later on.
Yes, it is. It's so beautiful. I love. I've only gotten to see the cover, but it's so beautiful. And how is it? I mean, so you decided you wanted to do art, and then how did you get started with illustrating children's books? And how is the process? Is it really different when you're doing, creating like those beautiful art pieces behind you versus when you're illustrating a book? Is it really different? Is it kind of similar?
I would say there are some similarities, but I do like both fields because they give me different experiences. When it comes to my fine art, I sometimes just something pops up in my head and I think that I need to sketch it out right away and it kind of develops. I look at references, maybe I'm outside and I see flowers because I do a lot of floral work and figurative work and animals. So I love going out to nature and maybe on a hike or something, I'm inspired by something. So I just jot down my sketch and then really excited to get to painting. So there's less of a organization behind it, I would say. It's just how I feel mostly, and I can't wait to get to painting. So I just, skip a whole bunch of steps, or maybe I'll just sketch it out on the canvas right away. And I don't do any underpaintings, I just get to painting. Whereas with illustration work, that's more of a organized thing. So definitely there's teamwork required for illustration work, especially I feel like there's even more teamwork required when you're doing it remotely because you don't have access to that person all the time or in person conversations you can hold. Of course, we have Zooms and all kinds of other amazing technological advances these days. But yeah, so it's different in a way that I'm also not just making all the decisions by myself. I have to kind of sit back and I like to connect with the client I'm working with or the author for illustrations in a way that we have a lot of discussion before I even get to work on the illustration. I really want to sync up with their vision, their concept, and if somebody describes a tree to you, they might be describing or envision an entirely different looking tree than what I'm just thinking about right now. And so I really like to poke and find out, what they're thinking of style wise, what other children's books or other books they like, and kind of feel out where their the whole concept in their head is, and then sync up with that as much as I can so that I can, illustrate something that they really want. And sometimes I'm working all throughout the book with the author, and we will do step by step and we'll check in all the time. And especially in the beginning, working with my clients, because they might not know exactly how I work or how things look. And we really want to do it step by step. And then most of the time, the more I get to work with an author, the more they tell me, okay, I've seen what you can do. So now just continue on and do what you have to. Right. And both things are amazing because I get to have creative freedom, but it teaches me also that not just my vision or my experiences in life, because a lot of times when I illustrate things, I take things from my experiences, right, and I put them into visuals. But I also need to, what I taught myself over the years is that it's not about me, it's about what the author is thinking of, and it's their story, and I'm kind of hopping on the wagon to experience this amazing creative journey with them. So it's taught me a lot about, when you're making art for yourself, it's all about you. It's all about what is in your head, and you focus into that. But this way I get to step back and really join somebody else on their creative journey, like I said.
love that and that collaboration because the authors that you've worked with, the ones that I know, they all rave about you. Like we just saw with the authors of Buck Up Cowboy Jack, and of course I know Deedee Cummings that you've worked with on so many books, like the Kayla series or In the Nick of Time. She loves you so much. I mean, so it's you've created this amazing relationship, which is interesting because when we interview other authors that say work with traditional publishers, they don't even really have any much communication, if any communication, with their illustrators. So just totally different experience. Is that why you like, kind of working more with independent public authors, so you get to have that relationship?
Yeah, I really love that because I feel like a lot gets lost when there's a middleman or middle person. And I just get to, like you said, we get to form these amazing work relationships that a lot of times also turn into friendships. And I get to really follow how the books are doing, the author's journeys, and even be part of them when they present their books, for example.
Mhm.
So there's it's it's a lot more interesting and exciting and fun to
Right.
be in direct connection to the author. And you can talk to them all the time or whenever they're available about this project. And yeah, working with somebody in between really just distances, just creates this distance. And for creativity, I feel like it's so much better if you have that creative flow that keeps going back and forth. And you're like, oh my God, I had this idea. What do you think about this? That way you don't have to go through somebody, get their approval once they have connected with the author. But I mean, I get both ways of doing things. Sometimes it's people prefer to go through a publishing company and then have that illustration kind of take care of itself in a
Mhm.
way, because they've all been pre-vetted, they're part of the publishing, and they're kind of in that style of what this publishing company creates or is all about. Where I think that, working with an author creates that individuality as well. Um, yeah, there's a benefit to both. And
Right.
people like the publishing part, some people like the direct work with illustrators.
It does
Yeah.
seem like a very different experience, whichever way you go with it.
Yeah, I've heard from previous authors that I've worked with about their experiences with publishing, and yeah, I guess yeah, there's pros and cons to both of those.
Well, one of the things that I know Deedee has mentioned when we talked about your books is how you always include little details from conversations that you've had. And you talk about that, how when you do children's books, you like to have the element of surprise so that when readers are looking at the page, they don't necessarily get everything the first time around, but then they'll see it later, all these little details. I mean, one I know in her book was, I can't remember, is in the nick, I think in the nick of time too, that it picks up on themes from the first book in the series that aren't necessarily mentioned in the text, but readers can go back and say, oh, there's the truck that the kid got as a gift and now he's playing for it in the next book. So can you tell us more about that, like what some examples are of these little surprises that you
Yeah,
include?
I feel like that's the thing that kind of is similar to my fine art
Mm-hmm.
work. I feel like if somebody gets an item illustrated by me or painted, it shouldn't just be all straightforward when you see it, because you're going to live with this item. If it's a book, you might be reading this book to your child for 300 times in the lifetime of a book. And so I feel like it always there has to be a couple different layers to this book, and the story and the visual together make something really amazing. And sometimes there's things in the words that there's a lot of things actually in the text that is not shown in the images, because it's kind of like a movie where I need to pick the main scene that'll kind of describe the most exciting part of that section of the text maybe, or the most meaningful part. And so I feel like it has to be layered in ways where it connects to the author in a deep way, because most of these stories do mean or come from the author's experiences and stories of their life, and there's just more of a connection to the author when you bring in these little details. For example, for Deedee, for example, a butterfly is very meaningful in a special way. So I try to bring in tiny little butterflies in areas where you might not expect them. For example, let's see, this one, which one is it? This one, for example. That's the fourth one, I believe. The Kayla series, and in this little dress there's like this tiny little purple butterflies that come popping out of it and kind of leaves a little bit of a trail. So I like to do that and surprise the authors in ways like that, but that's also because that's also why the discussions we have are very important to me, is because I really want to know more and what is behind the book, if they choose to share, and how this book relates to their life, and what it's really about, in a meaningful, deep way. Kind of, I feel like that is how we create a work relationship as well as kind of a personal relationship, because these books mean a lot to the authors most of the time, and they are sharing part of their life. And so, yeah.
But like with Buck Up Cowboy Jack, isn't that based on their father?
That is based on their father, which I have here too. This is Buck Up Cowboy Jack, one of the newer books by Evey Wolfe-Vallacqua and Paula Wolfe-Mello. They're sisters. So they created this book, and it's, based on the childhood of their father, which he is right here. So I got to really create a lot of artwork. Oh yeah, let me show you one part, which is this little car that we decided to put in later on. I forget what car exactly it is, but one of these older, that was his car, and that was something very special for them. And so later on we decided, why don't we just add that to the barn where it could have been parked? And you don't even see the entire car, but it just adds so much more meaning to the authors. And that's what's really special about creating these books. Let's see if that helps. Creating these books is that I get to do that. I get to kind of put surprises for the authors as well as the readers, because later on maybe the readers want to ask the authors what the book is about and why certain things are the way they are, and then they can tie that to their amazing stories if they want to share.
I love that. And something that you also are really wonderful about including is these really empowering images. I mean, a lot of the characters that you create are diverse, and I know you said that sometimes you've drawn on people that you know in your own life. These really strong, well-rounded characters, and that includes in your fine art. I know about including women of color. Why is this kind of representation, whether you're talking about children's books or you're talking about fine art, why is that so important?
I feel like when I was growing up, like many others, my generation and before, there weren't many people of color that I could see as my heroes or I even learned about in school. And so I feel very honored these days that I get to be a person to put that out there. I get to base my work on amazing people of color, if they've been like famous people that haven't gotten any recognition, or like scientists or whatever, and I get to put them on paper and make stories, like visualize stories about them, or even people that have usual, just normal people's lives, and people around me, friends, people I think that are doing amazing work. I get to portray these people in books and in my work. And what I was thinking about my last solo show is, why don't I just flood the entire gallery of the space that I get for my solo show with people of color, and have them create this beautiful atmosphere and take up the space. So representing people of color, especially women of color, in my personal work is just something I feel like I would have wanted to see when I was little, and that could have been something I could have looked up to, because I remember I have a white mom and a black father, an African American father, and I didn't get to meet my father, so I've gotten a lot of her culture in Germany, and so I've always kind of been missing that African American culture of my dad's side, and I feel like I can relive that, or just get to know that now that I'm grown through. I get to work with a lot of African American women or authors and men, on these book projects, and I have gotten so educated on so many people's history and their experiences. So yeah, I feel very fortunate being able to illustrate that in my work and present that to the public in a way.
Well, I love that. And what, speaking of your work, what are you working on now? Do you have any either book projects or art projects?
Yeah, so I've just completed the Buck Up Cowboy Jack and this little cute one, I Love the Me I See. So these are the newest projects that have been published now. This one's super cute. It's just so little and has self-esteem and this boy who loves the galaxy. So these are the most recent books I've been working on. And then I have a project coming up with the lacrosse community in Wisconsin. So there's Historical Society and the Enduring Families Project. They're working on creating a book about the lacrosse community in the 1800s. And so I'm going to be illustrating a book that they're putting together. And then I am working on this very huge painting behind me as a commissioned work for a client. I think I showed you last time. It was just a sketch back then.
Right.
Huge, just 4 by 6 feet. And so it's been taking me a while. But yeah, those are the 2 projects that are going on right now. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I remember seeing it recently in your Instagram, which everybody should go look at your Instagram because it is so cool. I mean, just if you want like a behind the scenes look of what it's like to be an artist and to have a studio. I mean, it's so fun because you like give a tour of the studio, or you'll get to see Charlene when she's actually painting and creating. It's really neat to look at, and I often look at it with my daughter who loves art, so it's really fun for her to get to see this actual artist, you know. So, and the illustrator of books that she loves, because she loves the Kayla books. So
yeah,
that is really fun. Yeah,
I have all my books hanging out behind me in the studio, so I can go back and look at them, or even during our openings we have them sitting out here so I can share these amazing journeys, about the amazing journeys I have with these authors. So, but yeah, illustration work inspires my fine art, and fine art inspires illustration work. So it's fun. And I use my Instagram a lot for, recording just the life of being an artist. There's a lot of time lapses of my work and the projects I'm working on. And I get to have lives with amazing people like you, Leanna.
This is so fun. I know there's at least the second one. I think it might be the third one we've done, because I think we've done 2 for Makeaway Media. One of them was pretty recent, and one was like when I was first starting. So it's always so fun to get to talk with you. And thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. Anybody who's joined in late, it'll be up in a few minutes on our Instagram, then on our YouTube. And when we have it on YouTube, we'll have the direct, the direct links to her website and other resources. Although, of course, if you're watching this on Instagram, just go to our Instagram page and you can go to the link in her bio to find all of this. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.